Welcome back. We're here for episode number 29, and we're recording this episode on a pretty big news day for the Sooners, unfortunately. If anyone's that been watching Twitter, there's been a decommitment rate lately, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Brandon Innis's commitment that's coming up that the Sooners might be getting some good news on this weekend. And like an SEC schedule ban, basically from the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC, kind of like an alliance, trying to avoid the SEC for whatever reason. And this is how they get back at us. I can say us now, which is weird to think about that we're going to be a part of the SEC.
SEC legends.
Yeah. So we really appreciate all the support, and we hope that you guys are enjoying it. If you hadn't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment, let us know what you think on what we have to say today and in our opinions, and let us know what you think about Luther Burden and Brandon Innis and the schedule alliance that they're trying to form. So we'll get into it. Obviously, already hinted and kind of talked about it. Luther Burden has announced his decommitment. Jose did mention it. I didn't want to really acknowledge it. I think on the last video or two, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I feel like I've seen this over and over and over again with 5-star players or 4 or 5-star, whatever, coming closer to signing day and then flipping or going somewhere else. Like I think Kamar Wheaton, I guess he never committed, but I thought he was going to be a Sooner. And then you saw Jace McClellan be committed for 2 years and then flipped to Alabama the last second. And now you've got Luther Burden, who was committed for well over a year. And, this long drawn saga has kind of come to an end. Well, as of now, he's now free and he's basically down to Missouri and Georgia, apparently. And the Sooners are still in it. Things have happened. People have decommitted and committed again, like C.D. Lamb and Theo Weiss. They both were committed, then decommitted, and then committed again and signed with the Sooners. So it's not totally over. Brandon, I want to get your takeaway and your opinion on this today.
This one sucks. Taylor Shetron sucked. But it made. I mean, I guess it made sense. He wants to go play with his brother, who isn't good enough to field an offer from OU or pretty much anybody. This one sucks. Number one receiver in the 2022 class. I was so excited for him. So excited about his potential in this offense, playing with Caleb, potentially, or definitely Caleb, Malachi Nelson, and then, league bound probably. I think he would have been really good for offense. I think it would have been a good move for him personally. If he goes to Missouri, which I think a lot of people are thinking, as like the lead, it's probably Missouri's to lose at this point. He is. Other than just wanting to stay home, I truly don't get the move for him from a football standpoint. I don't understand why you'd want to go play at Missouri when you're competing for maybe 6 wins. Like that's 6-6, boys, we did it. Versus playing at a school like Oklahoma, where I think these next couple of years we're playing for the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I get I get it, but then I don't know. At some point, he tweeted out business decision or something like that. The best business decision is to go play at a big school.
And if he wants to play at home so bad, and that was his whole thing. Like, whenever he is draft ready, is he going to say the St. Louis Rams need to come back home, or I'm not playing in the NFL? Is that how that works?
Yeah. Or I'm not playing in the NFL. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, that was my takeaway from his decommitment, the business decision thing. I don't know if anyone listens to Pat McAfee show, but Kirk Herbstreit was on there, and he was talking about his contacts within the college football, with all the programs that he has contacts in. He's heard that a lot of coaches kind of use potential big sponsorships from big companies in the area that could potentially pay those players as a way to attract more talent. I don't know how many big companies there are.
Anheuser-Busch.
Oh yeah, that's St. Louis, right? So that would be, from what I know, that's their biggest one. But I'm sure there's other big companies that Mizzou is associated with. So maybe that's a reason he went in. That's kind of the only thing that I took away from his decommitment. Like you said, I mentioned it in the last episode. And we've all seen it kind of in the rumor mills. We just didn't want to acknowledge that it was a possibility because he was the last receiver in the 2022 class, other than Malik Brown, that could potentially transition there. And from what it looks like, probably will once he gets to campus. But I'm starting to think it was a money driven decision rather than football. And obviously, I'm sure staying at home was a benefit, but someone's got to be in his ear saying you're going to be making more money if you stay home and play for Mizzou rather than going to Oklahoma, which is probably still not true, but someone probably said that. Something's happening there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, speaking of that, so a couple of things. So you think about Georgia, you talk about big companies. Well, Atlanta is full of them. I mean, Atlanta's got everything there, and that could be definitely playing into it. In Georgia, I always question Georgia as far as their credibility and their integrity as far as recruiting goes.
McDonald's bags.
Yeah, maybe Luther went to a McDonald's and picked something up. But then as far as, him staying at Missouri, if he comes to Oklahoma, he's going to be surrounded with talent that's close to his stature and people of that sort. He goes to Missouri, he is by far the most talented guy in the receiving room, and he's going to stand out and be able to, get every big signing deal or endorsement that Missouri is going to be able to offer him, because all the companies are going to want him. I mean, no one else is going to be as good as him. So maybe obviously he could make more money. I don't know.
None of us know this kid, but Brum, obviously, but you're exactly right when you said, like, at Oklahoma, he's probably the most talented kid on the receiving group as soon as he gets to campus. But at the same time, like, there's a bunch of guys like him. Like, he's not just going to be head and shoulders above everybody else, which he would be at Missouri if he does decide to go there. And maybe he kind of likes that. Maybe he kind of likes, because I'm sure in high school I don't think anybody's touching him or anybody's close to him. Maybe he wants to be that big dog on the team that, I'm the best, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. And I mean, everyone's got their opinions and what they feel like and what they want. I mean, some people would rather be that guy and maybe not win quite as much, but you're that guy making great money and you're good with it. Or you want to be with the best of the best, and you might not be the best on the roster, but you win and you probably still make great money being a Sooner. I mean, I don't know. And I just wonder, that whole Georgia deal, like Georgia and Missouri, there's no way that anyone is honestly telling him, his friends, his family, his coach, his high school coach, that you're going to go to a better system at Missouri or Georgia as a receiver. There's no one in their right mind actually telling him that.
From a
I wouldn't
football
think.
standpoint, it makes no sense.
I mean, you're not even that far away from home. What are you? You're 8 hours from St. Louis. I mean, it's not that far. Granted, I know some family probably can't make it, but I don't know. To make a couple $100,000 in college, and you could be sacrificing millions in the long term going to the NFL.
He can fly out any family member he wants, St. Louis to Norman.
That I didn't even think about that, but that's a very fair point. But is it really worth making a few dollars now that you could probably make close to at OU, by the way, and then you can still make it up and you make millions more in the NFL? I mean, is it really? I don't know. Maybe
City's becoming a pretty big city in itself. You mentioned Atlanta, the most recent census or whatever. I think Oklahoma City is number 22 as far as population size, which is only going to help us too in the future. If Oklahoma City keeps growing and more businesses and stuff start moving into our backyard.
Yeah, and I could think it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. It's just because we've always thought that there's been some money transfer, autographs. You heard Johnny Manziel on, what was it, Busting with the Boys, saying, with the signatures and whatnot. And we always had the thought that happens, but now it's wide, out in the open, and it's tough to wrap your mind around. But when you start thinking about what's around you, what are the big cities? I mean, why are kids going to not only come for a good football program, they want to build their name? And like you said, Oklahoma City's growing, which is great. But, Georgia, just because they've got Atlanta there, or, Miami, they're in Miami, I mean, it's just like things like that are going to start playing a bigger and bigger role into the kid's decision. And I think I'm just having a hard time realizing that could have played a decision.
Yeah, and it's gonna. I think moving forward, you're gonna see a lot of guys start making business decisions for themselves. Good brand and good big city next to them. Georgia, Georgia is kind of in a great position there. Oklahoma City, like you guys said, it's growing. We're just not. They're not at the position where like USC or Georgia, other places like that have huge brands, big businesses that are willing to pay money and sponsor schools have that advantage. And it might happen to Oklahoma because we do have a lot of alumni and sponsors that come from Texas that could potentially benefit Oklahoma. It just needs to, it also just depends on state laws because every state right now has a different law with how you're paying these kids. And if it's either going to be what's going to benefit them the most in the state, or if at some point there's some legislation that makes this a federal thing where it's kind of more equal with amongst all the states. I mean, who knows? And I'm not going to try to predict that far ahead, but all of this stuff is going to start making a difference to 17, 18-year-olds that not only are they trying to potentially win championships in college, but they're trying to change their lives and their families' lives moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate to admit it, but University of Texas is in a fantastic position. I mean, you think of Austin, they've got Apple and all the tech companies are there. Tesla's going there. I mean, everything's there.
And that's going to hurt at the end of the day. Like Arizona State's in a fantastic position. And in Tempe, that Phoenix area, it's fantastic. They're dog water. No one's going to want to go there still.
Here's the deal. As much as we don't want to admit it, you can't compare Texas's brand to Arizona State. Texas won't be bad forever.
They've been equally successful the past 15 years. Maybe not 10 years.
Yeah, but it's the brand now. And it's like Arizona State doesn't compare to a Texas brand. They might be the same result at the end of the year, but saying that you went to Texas to play football is different than being a Sun Devil.
Well, we acquired Sun Devil legend punter.
Turk. Yeah. But I will say that, I think Texas, not to get off on a tangent, but I think with Sarkisian, they're in their best position as far as head coaching goes in a long time. And I think he's going to be better for him. But
we talked about that in Vegas. I could disagree more with you guys on that.
Yeah, that's a different topic for another day. But so moving on to some better news, we've got Brandon Innocent's commitment on Sunday. That's going to be happening on CBS Sports HQ. I'm not sure about the time. I'm sure it's going to be sometime in the afternoon. 2023 5-star wideout, number 9 overall prospect, number 1 wide receiver from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which it seems eerily similar to the stats and the rankings as Luther Burden. But Brandon Inniss, he's going to be announcing his commitment. Seems like he's hopping on board with the Sooners. And I think we've talked about this in the last month or so on a few videos that now that Malachi's on, Makai Lemon's on, people are filling up their spots. And so I think that's a great thing. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, no, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's just kind of a race at this point for the scholarship positions. And who knows, maybe with Luther Burden not being a Sooner for now, it may open up some spots in 2023 where we can get, all the guys on the wish list, Inniss, Makai, Jordan Hale, DeAndre Moore, and maybe there's a couple others out there that want to be Sooners. Yeah, Micah Tease. Like there's 2023 right now seems to be where the staff is focusing a lot on, because to be honest, even though we still have 4 months before the early signing of the 2022 class, that seems to be kind of solidified at this point. There's those guys that are still teetering between 2 or 3 schools, but for the most part, the guys that are on the wish, like that a school really wants, they've already got or are working their asses off to get right now. Like it's the 2022 class is already spoken for. So we're focusing to 2023. And I think Brandon Inniss is going to be a huge get. Obviously, he's one of the best receivers in that class. And those guys, along with Malachi, along with Malachi and DeAndre and Makai, all seem to be very good friends. And Trayon. And we can't forget about Trayon.
Who has shut down his recruiting.
Yeah.
Which you'd love to see.
this is, I mean, obviously, I think all those guys are pretty good friends. They always mention each other on Twitter when they tweet about something in regards to school or OU. So I'm pretty confident that this is going to go OU. I think it would have to be something disastrous needs to happen in the next week for this to change his mind and him potentially postpone his commitment day. So only looking up for Oklahoma's 2023 class at this point.
Yeah, I 100% agree with those. That 2023 class we've talked about multiple times on multiple different podcasts. That I think we're all blown away with what that class can be, should be. Honestly, with the guys we already have there with Malachi, Mackay, Luke Has, Brandon Ennis likely, Trayon. Yeah, I mean that class is going to be stupid. Hopefully we keep them all because that now is something that worries me. I think if I'm Brandon Ennis, I would make my commitment if we haven't found a time yet. He should do it at like 3:35 in the morning, just to make those guys at CBS Sports HQ, whatever, just do something different. I'm sure the CBS HQ people would love it.
Yeah, but you spoke about, like, I hope he stays committed, and I'm worried about it, and that's something for us to think about. I think the major difference is, and it makes, I don't think it should make a difference, but it really does. I think with not having a quarterback committed in the 2022 class to kind of lead the guys, at least lead the receiving position and the running back position, I think that's plays a big factor. And you have a guy like Malachi Nelson at the helm. I think it will hold it together.
I definitely agree with that. And I also kind of piggybacking off what Ho said earlier. I don't know how close the 2022 class was as far as our recruits that we had, but like Ho's mentioned, these 2023 kids, they seem like a pretty tight-knit group of kids that, they're talking a lot. They're always hyping each other up on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. They seem to be like boys already. So like, I think that will also help us because who doesn't want to play with their friends?
Yeah, for sure. And it's so we got some bad news and then we've got some good news that's coming up. It's still going back to the 2022 class. It's just hard for me to wrap my mind around, even without a quarterback committed, that at one point we had 1 5-star and 2 4-stars, and arguably Shetron could have been a 5-star. At one point we had those guys locked down so fast. And you're like, okay, we're done recruiting.
And what hurts even more is one of them went to SMU, which is a lie. One's likely going to go to Missouri. And one only left us because his brother couldn't field an offer from anywhere else in the country. And Oklahoma State was like, hey, let's get that kid from Oklahoma. We'll just offer his brother, who's dog water, and he'll come over here. And he literally said it in his tweet, like, I want to play with my brother.
Yeah, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around. And, I mean, it is what it is. There will be more good guys in the transfer portal that we might pick up, a guy in the off season. I mean, we got Mike Woods, which Mike Woods is was arguably one of the best SEC receivers last year. So
he was the best in Arkansas, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's just tough. It's more of a tough pill to swallow that we go from 3. I guess we have Raleek Brown, which he's a terrific athlete. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I'm just talking about a true wide receiver. It's just tough to see go from 3 to 0. But like Jose mentioned, we might have that might free up an extra scholarship for picking up an extra guy in the 2023 class. But I would imagine between Ennis's commitment, Makai Lemon, maybe DeAndre Moore, getting a transfer in this upcoming off season, and maybe taking one more transfer, maybe Hale will commit. I mean, you can't really complain. I mean, we've got one of the best.
It's like RJ Young tweeted, like, with Luther Burden's decommitment today, Oklahoma now has to make do with one of the most talented receiving rooms in the country, which, I mean, he's right. We still have one of the most talented receiving rooms in the country, but Luther Burden, that one sucks.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have the GOAT Mims for one more year after this, so we'll be fine.
Is Mike Woods going to be there next year too, or is this different?
He's got an extra year. Yeah.
Thanks to COVID.
If he doesn't have a terrific year and can just go straight to the league, I'm sure.
I was listening to the sports animal today on my way to work. Just a little our local station here in Oklahoma, sports talk radio, and they were like, for 5 minutes they were just going on and on about how good Mike Woods is going to be.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things hyping up Mike Woods, so I'm starting to think Mike is going to be lining up on the outside, opposed to either Hazelwood or Weiss, and it's just kind of they're competing for the other outside.
That receiver room is still just ridiculous.
I think I didn't really realize how good Mike Woods was when he first transferred in, because I didn't watch a lot of Arkansas football. But the more I've been watching, the more I've been reading, the more I've gone back and watched his games. The guy's a specimen. He's going to be a problem. I mean, he is huge. I mean, I think he's going to light it up. He's going to throw up 1,000+ this year, 10+ touchdowns.
He also
I
has a
think he's
fantastic
going to be
YouTube
elite.
channel that you guys should watch. If you're watching us, you should also tune into Mike Woods. He's
That
a good
is
content
true.
creator right there.
That is true. I have seen his YouTube a couple times, but yeah, I mean, we're crying over. I mean, we're upset about Luther Burden, but yet a lot of schools would kill to be what we have in the receiving room right now. So we have to keep it in perspective.
We're like a billionaire who just lost $3 million and we're losing our minds.
Yeah.
$3 counts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And at the end of the day, these are kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old. You can't get too invested into it until they step on campus.
But 65-year-old men get very invested about 25-year-old NFL players.
I guess that's true. I don't know. At some point, they are still kids.
Yeah. Your investment can only be so much in this situation. They're like Brum said, they're in high school.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. So we'll move on as long as you guys don't have any other thoughts or comments about the receiving room. One step backwards, 2 step forwards this weekend. It is what it is. So, now there's been talks, and I think we've mentioned it before, but about the alliance of the Big Ten, Big Ten, ACC, and the Pac-12 have been rumored and have been meaning to talk about, and that they're going to try to band together and make a response, and go against the SEC, because they've realized that the 16 teams in the SEC are going to dominate everyone, and the money is going to be insane in that conference, and it's just literally going to be the best conference. It already was, and now it's got that much better. It's head and shoulders better than everyone. So there's talks about them making a schedule band in football against every SEC program for I don't know how long. I don't think it's sustainable, but I just think it's kind of funny, because think about this. Are you telling me that if HBO, ESPN, whoever, Amazon, because I know they're getting into, broadcasting and whatnot, how are schools like Michigan going to turn down $5 million to play OU? Because I know we've got it scheduled, in 2030 something or late 2020s. And, we've got a few that are out of conference, like the Clemson and whatnot. You're telling me those schools are going to really turn down that much money? And it might even be more with OU beating the SEC. I just think this is all just BS, just smoke. And they're trying to make some news, and
they're all just a bunch of butthurt crybabies. Everybody is, because you're exactly right. The revenue, the recruiting, everything's gonna be easier for all of these SEC schools now. And it's like the SEC was once the most hated guy, right? It's like a friend group, right? All the Power 5 conferences, the 4 of them, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the Pac-10 and the Pac-12 and the Big 10, whatever. The 4 that are not the SEC. We were all friends, and we mutually hated SEC. Oklahoma and Texas decided to go to the SEC. Now these other schools don't want to play with us anymore. They don't want to be our friends.
Because we joined the dark side.
Because we're friends with the kid that everybody hated.
Yeah, and maybe this is a play on trying to dissolve the Big 12 as well, and trying to scoop up the remaining teams to make them also have 16 teams in each conference, which I think needs to be done. And it makes a lot of sense to have 4 power conferences. And, if we go to the 12-team playoffs, the 4 conference champions get the first round buys, and then, the remaining 8 best teams get in. But, also, if they want to do that, that's fine, because the money is not going to change for the Sooners or any team in the SEC. And then we get another couple games against, group of 5 teams. So we're going to play an 8-game conference schedule against 4 group of 5 teams and still have the best strength of record.
Because our old friends don't want to play with us anymore.
Yeah. So are they really punishing us, or are they punishing themselves? because anyone that's going to look at it's going to know we're going to have the best record or best schedule.
I think at this point it's well, yeah. I think the first takeaway I had was this has like the Big 12 is done. It's not coming back. There's no reports of them even being in this little alliance. I know a few weeks back, whenever all this first started, the Big 12 was trying to do an alliance with the Pac-12, I believe. That didn't seem to work out, so the Pac-12 moved on to bigger and better things for themselves. So Oklahoma will probably be in the SEC sooner, hopefully next year. But yeah, that it doesn't make sense why these three conferences are saying that they want to alienate the SEC. It doesn't benefit them in any way. And there's the OU and the Longhorns moving didn't affect them in any way either. They're not being financially affected. Their conferences are still intact. If anything, the move that they made actually made it easier for them to grow as a conference and potentially gain more money from TV networks if they get the right schools from the Big 12. I mean, as much as we hate them, Oklahoma State is a good enough program that if they moved to the Big 10 or the Pac-12, that might get those conferences a little bit more money and TV rights deals. So I don't know. I don't understand where they're coming from, but I also don't think it's a real thing. I think it's just a whole bunch of, reported stuff to cause conversation and drama to ultimately end up to being history that never actually comes to fruition.
Yeah. And I think who the true winners in this scenario could be, if there is one, would be the American Athletic Conference. Think about it. Like we've talked about, not every team in the SEC is dominant. So you're telling me that a team like, I don't know, UCF can go play Vanderbilt. They might beat Vanderbilt. They probably would beat Vanderbilt. And they would probably get paid good money to play Vanderbilt.
You're forgetting that UCF is like 3 years removed from being national champions.
Oh, I know. I mean, that's what national champions. Yes. Yeah. And they did beat Auburn. They did beat Auburn in their national championship game. But so you're telling me that teams like that are actually good can go play against SEC schools? Because I feel like that's what will happen.
Too.
Yeah. I mean, Tulsa will probably play Oklahoma, will probably play Arkansas, maybe Missouri. And that's only going to benefit that conference. That conference is going to start generating more money. They're going to start getting more recruits. They're going to offer them more money, or, donors will, or companies. I really think the American Athletic, they have to be sitting there and be ecstatic if they actually are going to do this.
Yeah. That's the first school I thought of. Cincinnati, not only are they ranked in the top 10 for the preseason polls right now, they could, this 100%, like you said, they're in a great position to start climbing those ranks and start being seen as a big program for football. And it's everyone else is just hurting themselves. The American Athletic is just sitting there laughing their asses off at the other Power Five conferences, thinking how dumb they are, because now they're in a position to probably, like you said, get more money from schools, from playing at SEC schools. And who knows, they might be the replacement Power Five conference if they want to just continue a Power Five system, which I don't think will happen, but possible.
If I was Cincinnati, Zadie, I would be trying to schedule games against all the big SEC schools. I'd be trying to let us play Bama, let us play LSU, let us play Oklahoma, let us play Texas, let us play.
Exactly.
Even just a middle of the road SEC school, just because of how much being in the SEC carries weight in regards to school. Go play an Ole Miss, go play in Missouri. Like, for some reason, people still, like, the media still thinks those are like very good football schools, that if you beat them like they should, because I believe Cincinnati is a good program right now, you could be in the conversation for the number 4 spot if you're in the right situation in the right year.
Cincinnati almost beat Georgia this year in their bowl game. It was like a last-second field goal for Georgia that was the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and think about it. If the playoffs go to 12 teams, Cincinnati, they schedule 2 or 3 SEC schools before their conference schedule, and say they play like Missouri, Tennessee, and Oklahoma just in one season. Say they go 2-1 in there, and then they run their conference. They go 11-1 overall, and they win the conference championship. They very well could be the 5th or 6th best team in the country at that point. Because if you win a couple SEC games, you run the American Athletic, and you win the championship, even without the expanded playoffs, you would have a actual case, because you would have those quality. I mean, granted, Tennessee's not great, but Missouri's not great, but they're better than playing, I don't know, Marshall. But
We are.
I think the American Athletic, if they got this for a couple years and you had a couple good programs in the American Athletic, scheduled great games against, middle of the road and even great SEC schools, and they win a few of those expanded playoffs, those programs are going to explode and that conference will grow. And I really think the Big Ten and the rest of them will shoot themselves in the foot doing that. And, I don't know. It's just an interesting thought that I don't think anyone's really talked about the American Athletic gaining from that, but
Definitely.
I don't know.
I think all of this is going to at some point lead to getting rid of the NCAA for all the conferences in the school. That's kind of just like my bold prediction, thinking super far ahead in the future. It makes no sense to keep the NCAA around for the schools. The NCAA, from an outsider's perspective, does absolutely nothing but just make lives harder for schools and the players and the athletes that attend these schools. Like, why not, as a collective, either figure out regions, figure out conferences, whatever system you want, and hire a commissioner, and then all your ADs, and just go to a commissioner. You got your rules, kind of like the NFL, right? At the end of the day, you all will, at the big schools will make a lot of money. They'll compete for championships, and the little schools get to make a little bit more cash because they'll get to be on the backs of schools like Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas. Why not start moving to that system and get these kids paid like they should be?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think, they're not actually going to do this as far as not scheduling. It's probably more to kill the Big 12. But if they do, the American Athletic has got to be sitting there smiling. And even if they do schedule, like the Big 10 and them open up their scheduling for the SEC, I really think the American Athletic, like their top, Cincinnati and them, need to be scheduling a game or two against SEC opponents. That's a quality. I mean, as long as they're not playing Vanderbilt every year, if they're playing an actual program that knows how to somewhat play football, it would benefit them greatly. And another thing, last thing before we wrap up, is you can also sell the recruits, hey, you're going to play 2 games against the SEC every year before you even get in the playoffs. What difference does it make? We're in Cincinnati. We're in a big city. You can make a lot of money here.
The real Sin City.
Yeah, the real Sin City. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm more excited for the American Athletic and then the SEC. So I don't know.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts or anything to add before we wrap this up, but I think this is all we've got for today's episode. So, all right. We're good. So if you made it this far, if you hadn't already, please hit that subscribe button, like the video. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about Luther Burden, Brandon Ennis, and then this whole scheduling alliance deal and who could benefit, who's going to hurt. Let us know what you think, and we'll get back to you with it. And we appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow.